I'm going to go ahead and start and let others join. As per usual, I have about 20, 30 minutes of rambling that I'd like to kind of reflect on the chapter and get your thoughts, your feedback, what rises for you, what you hear, and what I talk about in this book. So we're in chapter 5 of Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. So chapter 5, it starts off with a quote or a poem, actually. I think it's more of like a quote. I don't know why I have written down poem unless it's what's stated in the book. It's possible, but tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild, precious life. This is by Mary Oliver. I do think this is a beautiful poem, and she uses it at the start of the chapter and at the end of the chapter, and it has us reflect on really, for me, what rose for me is years ago, probably now 15, 18 years ago, took a course. It was several months. I'm going to say it was 3 months long. It might have been 6 months, actually. I think it was 6 months, 6 months long. And throughout the course, every month, it was 6 months. So it wasn't even in my hometown. Like we had to physically be in person. This is before Zoom was a thing, right? 15, 18 years ago. So I had to fly once a month to meet this class. And it was about 20 of us. But anyways, throughout the 6 months, really what it was is every month we had lessons. But there was a big overarching assignment that we had to complete by the end. And throughout the 6 months, you're building on it, you're creating it. It's your own eulogy. And you had to read it out loud to the class the last meeting, the last coming together. You had to read it out loud. It had to be with basically an accumulation of the whole 6 months. Anyways, needless to say, I couldn't read mine from start to finish. I was so emotional. But anyways, what it taught me is to live each day with the end in mind. And I really feel like that poem or that quote, tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. Hi, Shana. I'm going to go ahead and read all my notes real quick, about 20 minutes, and then I'd love to hear what thoughts you have. So 6 months, I took this course, learning how to write my own eulogy and reading it aloud in front of 20 different people. Really had me reflect on what is the end in mind? What is it, how I want to be remembered? What is it that's important to me? It had me really get super grounded and super defined on what I want to do with this one wild and precious life. And so that's why I like this poem or quote from Mary Oliver. I think that we've all experienced being afraid of what other people think in one capacity or another. I think for some of us, it's known and obvious, and in some situations, it's non-conscious. It's kind of like running in that background, right? It's this protector, this shield or walls, whatever you want to call it, that kind of runs for us. And I am absolutely grateful for Facebook and Facebook memories. I almost every single day, not every single day, because sometimes my days get away from me, but I go back through my Facebook memories. And I love that, what was it, probably 12 years ago, I was a power Facebook user. I posted a lot of things that my daughter said without naming their names. So I deeply enjoy looking back over my memories. What I will say is times have changed for Facebook, at least from my own experience, my own perspective. I feel like Facebook has changed a lot. And it's fascinating to me. There are groups and communities that I'm in, and it's interesting to me how Facebook is now used, and in a way that there's a couple of communities that I'm in that pretty much everybody posts in there anonymously because they are afraid of judgment, right? They are afraid. And some of those groups, they are posting really personal stuff. So I get that too. That makes sense. I probably would do the same with some of the stuff that they're sharing. But Facebook is, all social media is a thumbs up, a thumbs down, which is a polarity. It's either I agree or I don't agree, and it's it's commiseration, or, some of the groups I'm in are a bunch of people, commenting and posting on their spouse, and then everybody in the threads, leave them, leave them, leave them, get divorced. So it's no wonder why we're nervous and worried about what people are going to think. But anyways, another thing that's quite fascinating to me is how our mind, our thoughts get really sped up and create a lot of meaning out of thin air. And I think that she kind of points to that quite a bit in this chapter 5. And it is, our minds are serving us, right? It's a habit loop. It's a default. It's automatic negative thoughts, if you will. But our mind gets really sped up and likes to create a lot of meaning and take things personal. And we end up kind of, again, consciously or non-consciously, are worried about what other people's perceptions are of our photos or our posts or what we're going to say. I know that I've had many conversations with my daughters about when they text or when they don't text, and me even, just gently saying, oh, I texted you, I didn't hear back from you. And my daughters will say, they're both in their 20s, oh, I saw your text. I was contemplating on what to send you back. And then I got busy, I got distracted. But, when I talk to them at a deeper level, they're really wanting to have a really thorough, thought out response. And I think that's kind of cool in a way, but if you don't, or if you're not open and you're not able to have that healthy conversation of being open to what it is that's stopping them, again, you can create meaning out of thin air. You can make it personal. You can create stories and beliefs, and some people even block them, and maybe not a situation where it's your kids, but friendships. I've seen friendships end over, the lack of follow through on a text thread. So, but when we're really worried about what the perception of other people have on us, for instance, on social media, I think that there's some polarity there as well, right? And one other thing too that I want to say is that how on social media we can get, and she talks about it a little bit on some of the posts that she's posted, how she's overthought and analyzed and wanted to make the post perfect before she puts it out into the ethernet or whatever. And how we can get really caught up on no likes or 10 or 20 likes, and that one comment, that one, the one that stands out, that jolts you, right? That gut punch of a post, where, we make meaning out of it. We make meaning out of what they say. And, it's really, truly just their negative opinion, right? And we all are entitled to our own opinion, our own thoughts, our own feelings. A lot of things are thrown around now about, oh, my feelings aren't validated. Well, guess what? Everyone's feelings are valid, right? Everyone's feelings are valid. What you're thinking and believing is valid. It looks and appears true. So everyone's feeling, and rightfully so. I think that in a healthy conversation, it's etiquette maybe to validate them, right? I get that. And it's almost gives that person the acknowledgement and awareness that you heard them more than anything. It's also interesting is how we perceive how others think of us. Again, it's like mirroring. So when it's actually our own judgments, right? So when we project outwards, so when we're worried about posting pictures of ourselves, worried about what people think of our weight or what we look like or whatever, notice paradoxically, when you're scrolling through your feed, what are you thinking and believing, and how are you judging others, right? Because if you're believing that other people are judging you, it's likely that you're judging them. We paradoxically do that, right? We're projecting outwards. So be informed, be aware of the thoughts that you're having in your news feed. Notice those things that you're worried about posting of yourself, how you're paradoxically judging others, right? Opinionated, judging, analyzing, making things right or wrong, good or bad, or unfair or fair. I think that's the unfortunate what social media has created in our lives, is this huge it's like ingrained judgment, right? Things are good, things are bad, or hard, or, it's just, and she doesn't really talk about, well, she does talk about social media in this chapter. So I feel like I've kind of went off on a tangent, but that's okay. But she does go on and talk about how she's tried so hard and put so much energy into making things perfect. And I know that it was talked about in another chapter about, I think she mentioned it in this one, how I forget what, because they wrote the book, but this is like the 12th draft or something like that. So she puts a ton of energy into wanting things to be perfect, and she talks about how not wanting to generate any negative responses, exhausting yourself, thinking about every angle, every possible way that somebody might be judging her post. And it really holds her back from posting. It holds her back from putting herself out there, obsessively checking comments, obsessively checking probably the Amazon reviews and so forth like that, which I hear writers all the time talk about. The one thing you don't do is check your Amazon reviews because it's very jarring. But I think what Facebook is, or what she talks about in this chapter, is a metaphor for life, right? And she's talked about it throughout the book and other chapters about going to the party, or asking for the raise, or asking for someone to go out on the first date. Maybe it's doing a speech in front of 2,000 people. It's asking for that raise, or asking for the promotion, or whatever. It's really a metaphor for life, putting yourself out there. So what are you doing? What are you analyzing? What are you holding yourself back on? What are you obsessively checking or worried about or making perfect? And what it ends up doing is it kind of really ruins and spoils the moment now, when you're obsessing and thinking and dwelling and all the different things. But what if we could take ownership of our feelings instead of giving it away to some random Facebook drive-by? What if we took ownership of our feelings instead of letting an Amazon review ruin some piece of art that you created, right? I believe authors have created a work of art in some magnitude or another, and how we can move towards how we want to feel. Being open to other people's feedback, being open to other people's comments and opinions, knowing that it's their opinion, that it's coming from their thoughts, their beliefs, right? Being able to be open and willing to get roasted and making it mean nothing, right?
Wow.
Right. So
No, I mean, that's what you teach. You're
yes,
so
exactly.
good at it. I mean, anytime you do coaching, you're always saying, how does this serve you to ruminate over this? You're ruminating still. I mean, remember when I had the wedding and a couple things I didn't do and I regret. I mean, like 3 days later, I was crying about it. And you're like, no one's even thinking about the wedding anymore. And you're still feeling bad that you didn't do live show that you wanted to or a certain thing. And it's true, we always think about our own things way more. But I really like this chapter. It was chapter 4, right, that we're
Five.
that we're doing today.
Five.
I've let them. Oh, it's 5.
Mhm.
Shoot. I Okay, well, so I'm still on 4, I guess. I thought that was what we were doing today, but 5 is probably because it's all about let them. But um yeah, I so the last chapter though was about being criticized heavily and being able to make your choices. Either either we always have choice. We can either move on or we can live with it and love it
Mhm.
and decide to love it and decide to love the people that we're with.
Mhm.
But you don't just hate every moment and then turn the Zoom off and flip the computer off. You're just ruining your own life. We
Mhm.
don't give other people power to make us feel any way. I really, really have to agree. I don't know. When it's time, I want to share a story that happened at the reunion and then ask you how to apply the let them.
Yeah. what
So
I
I can
want
do
to,
that when it's not one
yeah,
later or whatever.
yeah. I just have a couple minutes of notes that I want to go through real quick, and then happy to, I'd love to hear your story. Love to. I'd love to hear your share and how we can apply this theory to your specific situation and give you some insights that would be really fun to do. And thank you for being here. I do want to say that what people
I love being here. Are you kidding?
what people
I
say,
love any time I get time with Catherine Hood. Are you kidding? Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
you're so cute. I heard this, I've heard this before, but whatever reason it fell into my lap about a week and a half ago. What other people have to say has more to do with them than me, right? I know that we've heard that, and for whatever, we all have heard that and we can all agree with that, right? It's in the moment when someone comments, posts, or says something to our face, or in passing, or in the grocery store. I got an email to yesterday, and it, there's just this sense that, oh, where did that come from? And then there might be this moment of alert or alarm or signals, I like to call it, where you feel your nervous system, and it might be in your stomach, it might be in your head or your neck or your chest, or it might be all of the above. You just feel it viscerally all over your body. But, we can easily get lost in that. Like the email I got yesterday was like, oh, but I do know that this individual is really, I don't know a whole lot about this person. They actually live within half a mile of me. I do know that they're really dealing with a lot. And I believe that email had more to do with them than me. Really do believe that, even though the words were very cruel and mean. But it was just like, I can lend compassion and empathy without responding to the email and say to myself that this person is really suffering. This person is going through a lot. I know that. I probably only know a fraction of what's going on. And really, what they're saying has some truth in it. Absolutely. 90% truth to it, right? The other 10% is, it could have been plated in a different way. But the reality is what they said, really, I look for the truth in it. I took the emotions out of the email and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. One of the other things too is I have a hobby of selling on Poshmark. I love fashion. I love high quality clothes, purses, all the things. I like to get new, and I don't want to accumulate too much. I like some, but not a lot. So I love Poshmark and I've sold on there for many years. But the thing is sometimes I help my daughter too. She's a really big reseller. A big portion of her income, my oldest daughter, comes from Poshmark. So I help her source. We've traveled, we've gone all kinds of places. But the point of it is sometimes I will sell plus size clothes on Poshmark. I model the clothes, I model them very well. I love photography. I love creative. That's a place I love
Wow.
to play. But one thing that happens so frequently is I get brutal messages from women that think it's not right for me to model plus size clothes. And I have flipped some individuals in a way that I'm able to respond back in a kind way. Others, I just gently block them. But the thing is I don't let it ruin my day, my week. I don't let it overshadow me, because again, what other people say or do says more about them than me, right? It has little to nothing to do with
Mhm.
me. That's what I know to be true. So, and
That is really true.
mhm. So, what?
Well, because just because you can have half the nation, for one thing, loves our president and half the nation hates him. Is he different? No, he's saying the same message. Half the people hated Jesus, they crucified him, and half the people loved him. I mean, those are two huge examples to me. Whatever side you're on, it's saying more about you than about the person because the person remains the same. And so anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
it's so
exactly.
true. Yeah. I think part of why we get so upset of is fear of rejection, right? Fear of being rejected. Um, being afraid to be seen as weird or ostracized or different or not good enough. I think, and I've always said this, I feel like the fear of not being good enough is the worst feeling in the world, right? So I think that we can use a let them theory, and I think that it's so let them and let me, or yeah, let them and then let me. I think it's such beautiful. I think it's so beautiful because it's so short and so simple, and we can practice it in small spaces in our life and then integrate it in bigger and bigger and bigger things. Um, and I do know that there's still this desire, right, to be accepted by everybody. So that's always going to be there. It's learning to, and I'm going to use your saying, Kim, is being Teflon, right? Learning to be able to let things roll off of you, right? It means more about them than me, and knowing that, and then letting them say what they need to say, get it off their chest. Sometimes people just want to feel heard. Some people just want to commiserate, or some people just want that space to voice or want someone to feel sorry for them too, right? She does describe in chapter 5 that posting on social media really is again, putting a metaphor, putting yourself out there. Uh, and again, going over, thinking, over analyzing before she posts things. She goes on to talk about how she stopped caring, right? Stopped caring and stopped thinking, and how, but the thing is, and then she also talks about how many thoughts we have in a day. And I think in chapter 5, she talks about 70,000 thoughts a day. And anywhere you look, it's anywhere from 40 to 100,000 thoughts a day. And who knows, right? I don't know if there's really any way to actually know how many thoughts that we have during a day. And one of the things that I've, in her language, stop thinking, stop this, whatever, but the brain really doesn't understand that command. And Kim, this, I do this a lot in coaching. I help you train your brain to focus on what you want more of versus what you don't want in your life, right? What do you want more of in your life? How do you want to feel? It's shifting your brain to what to focus in on, right? It's focusing on a solution. It's focusing on what's the next step forward. It's focusing on here and now and in the next few moments. Because if we stop thinking, or if I say, don't think, or stop thinking about pink cotton candy, stop thinking about the big cotton candy machine at the fairgrounds, and the smell and the sounds and the screaming kids and the chaos that happens at a fairground. What are you thinking about? Right? The brain
Yeah,
doesn't
you're thinking
understand.
about what you don't want to think. Yeah.
Yeah, so you create these images, right? So
Yeah.
what we have to do is we have to learn to articulate and speak language of what we want more of in our life. What do you want more of? So it's really about, how do you want to feel? What are the steps that lead you forward? What is empowering for me right now? So that's kind of one of there are things throughout the books that I'm like, slight little tweaks and changes that I would probably make. I appreciate how she gives examples of someone having a negative opinion and not meaning it as a whole, right? Someone's opinions are, again, everyone has an opinion. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone can have an opinion about politics. That's already been brought up today, is, it's okay. Let people have their opinion, and with compassion and empathy and curiosity, lean in and say, wow, it's fascinating that you feel strongly about that. Could you share more? Right? Where are you getting your information from? And I'd love to hear what has you so excited and passionate about this. It's fascinating to me. I had a conversation with somebody last week that was really along that same level. It was my ex-husband, to be honest with you. um, and he's, you know, got really passionate in this topic and really speaking, and you could tell nobody's listening to him. No one is actually asking him those questions like, where are you getting your information? What has you so excited about this? Why are you so passionate about this? What's going on for you? And what are you believing? And I mean, he just exploded and just had so much fun and so much excitement. I don't have to agree with it. And I don't even have to say that in the conversation. He just wanted to be heard, right? It'd been probably weeks before anybody's actually talked to him in that level. Uh, but when we fully embrace the let them theory, it can help us live our life more authentically, more genuine, more, as she said in the book, courageously. And we can give other people agency in their life. We can give other people the power and the choice to live their life by their morals and values and principles and religion and political beliefs. We can let them judge us if that's what they want to do. Let them send a mean email, let them send a mean text, whatever, let them, and not make it mean anything, not dictate how they operate, right? It's funny, whenever I get the thought of, oh, I wouldn't do that way, I usually stop and go, oh, here I am trying to put my rules on someone else. I'm trying to push my agenda on someone else, right? So if we let people have the power to think and believe what they want to think and believe, and always leave the door open for them to ask me questions if they have the emotional intelligence to do that, and they may not. Right? Some people just are stuck in me, and not open and not curious to other people's views, opinions, perspectives. Because here's the reality is someone on social media may only know 0.00000001% of me, right? So for them to judge me and for them to project their thoughts and feelings on me really has no impact and no bearing on me. So courageous. She talks about living life more courageously. Where does the feeling of courageous come from? All feelings come from our own thinking, right? Our own thoughts, our own beliefs. I believe that let them, let me, that those two combined really is releasing other people's judgments, and it moves us to taking ownership of our own feelings, moves us away from believing and getting whisked away in what other people say or think about us. Mel mentions in this chapter about let me make decisions from my values. I think values are really, really important. I talk about this a lot in my coaching, is understanding 5 solid values that you really believe in, that have a lot of richness, have a lot of depth, that don't overlap too much, right? That allow you to work from a framework to make decisions in your life. Because if you have really 5 incredibly strong values that have a meaning to that, to you, that has more than what the dictionary meaning is, more than what most people would see the meaning or depth of that word, you can really navigate a lot of your challenges, a lot of your conflicting thoughts via your personal values. So I know she only tapped on, I mean, she just said values in the, so I think there's a lot of stuff in her book that she kind of grazes over. And I think a lot of it is they probably, again, I think this was like the 12th rendition or whatever. I think that there was probably a lot of cutting and chopping. But values, I think, are really, really important. And I kind of wish she would have went into that a little bit deeper. But, you know, we can navigate through a lot of conflicting thoughts and beliefs and overthinking and overanalyzing on choices and decisions in our life when we really come from a strong grounding, a strong set of 5 words that, and these can change. Values can change. Your convictions typically don't, but your values can move and shift and evolve throughout your life. I also have worked with a lot of young individuals over this last year, a lot of high schoolers, a lot of college students. And unfortunately, one of the things that I'm hearing over and over again is that they're really living the life that their parents want them to live, right? They're being forced and pushed into taking a path that their parent took, or a path that their parent wants them to take, or follow in their footsteps. And the sad thing is, they're putting aside their needs, their desires, their passions, their what excites them, and ultimately, building up this resentment in the background. And in my opinion, it's destructive to the family bond. It's destructive to what I call the bank account of goodwill in the relationship. uh you know but she kind of talks about in this chapter, the something about, I think she said something about, I don't know, she talked about the youth or something like that. But anyways, for whatever reason, I felt like that was important to bring up. But I think what she did talk about was this: following your dreams, following your passions. Let other people judge you, and let other people tell you what to do with your life, but follow your dream, follow your passions, follow what fulfills you, what gives you meaning, what gives you purpose. And that's the whole basis of coaching. Really, a lot of people come to me with conflicting thoughts. I want this, but I want that. What do I do? People are telling me to do this and that. What do I do? It's just, they get so torn. But if you really are clear in your values, what makes your heart sing, what has you getting excited to get out of bed every morning without an alarm, creating a life that don't need a vacation from, that you don't dream about the next getaway, the next escape, that's living life, right? Going back to the original quote at the beginning of the book was, it says poem here in my notes, but I think it was just a quote. Tell me, what is your plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I think that that's such a great way to begin and end that chapter. But yeah, so again, my rambling, my notes, and what I took away from chapter 5. But I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are, and what your reflections are. And if Kim, if you're not into chapter 5, would it be okay if Shayna
No,
shares first?
yeah, I was just, I remember chapter 5. It's
Okay,
the best. I really loved it because it's a huge problem for me. But yeah, Sheena, go ahead.
you're still on mute.
Can Sheena hear?
Yeah, there
Sorry,
she
I'm wrong button. Okay, so I love
There,
chapter 5,
Sheena.
and actually, I don't like social media. I'm addicted, and for me, it's an all or nothing thing. So I have a hard time. I can't just have one cookie. I'll eat the whole thing. Same with social media. If I'm in, I'm all the way in, and it's become very addictive for me. So I actually am deleting my Facebook memories because I don't want to, like, I don't want Facebook to have the pictures. I don't want them to not, I'm just was much more sharing in the past. I'm much more private now. So I'm very different than Catherine's comments. Um, and my biggest takeaway is that opening line about that little whatever, it's a quote. And to me, about the precious life is actually about living your truth instead of
Mm,
living for others, like you were just alluding to. But more in a way of like, you have one life. Are you making the choices for yourself? And this is where I'm at personally in my life, now 45. And I think that that was my biggest takeaway. I actually dog-eared a lot of pages in this chapter. I normally don't do that. I make stars and asterisks and circle, but I actually dog-eared pages because I feel like this chapter is really influential when it comes to, if you aren't going to do it for yourself, that means you're a slave to someone else. And she says it a
mhm,
couple times, that you are a slave to others, that you are giving your power away to others. And to me, that is the most like revolutionary idea for me that I have not considered in my own past. But if I'm not doing it for me, then I'm doing it for someone else, and therefore I'm a slave to them. And that to me is just the biggest takeaway of chapter 5. And it was the last few pages where I really dog-eared the pages. And she spent a lot of the time on the social media and the whole thing, and taking the time to be brave. Like, I have no problem posting the post and doing the things, but I'm a very addictive going back and reading the comments, and every 4 seconds, like, is there a new like? I just can't seem to
mhm.
just like break away from the two things. Um, so I don't post anymore. But she spent a lot of time in this chapter on social media, and I thought that was eye-opening and made me kind of sad, because I feel like a lot of relationships need to be this way, not that way. And I think that Facebook or social media in general takes people to their devices. That's part of the plan to get you away from faces like this.
Mm.
And I don't love that. So my personal rebellion is being a rebel right now in today's day and age is to not be on social media so much, because I feel like it is distracting and detracting from life in person, or and I guess it is screen in this capacity, but um I see her point on trying to post and be brave and not care. But I'm going all the way to the other side of just not even playing on
Yeah.
social media. But that was my biggest takeaway, as I love the if you're not living your life for someone else or for yourself, you're a slave to someone else.
Oh, what a great share. I love that. I use the metaphor of you're the puppet and they're your puppet master. I like the slave as well, or being imprisoned. I think that depending on the client and what the conversation is, I'll use different metaphors. But yeah, when you are a slave to others, and I think that sometimes is jarring. I think that we can sometimes, again, just be on autopilot motoring through life and not realize that we are giving our power away, that we are the slave to others. We don't realize that we're doing that. And and unfortunately that's, again, you're not being yourself, you're living someone else's life, someone else's truth. Yeah, and I appreciate your rebellion, and I absolutely love that with so much passion and, yeah, excitement. So thank you for sharing. That was, woo, I mean, it was a small share, but with such boldness, and knowing you too. I mean, we've met once, had a conversation years ago, and there's just such growth there. I see and hear so much. It's almost like, here's the line. Like, you've driven down and found your line. You're really finding yourself. You're really speaking your truth. Yeah. And I love the rebellion and shifting away from that sense of, I don't need, my value isn't in likes, my value isn't in people's comments, my value is not in social media, because it's not, it really isn't. That doesn't pay the bills, it doesn't put food on our table. I mean, I guess some people it does, but I mean, that's like the 1%ers, right? Those people that is all they do. And certainly you can have that job. That's not for me. So really good. Anything else you want to add as I kind of regurgitate where I'm coming from?
That's really accurate, and I do think that it's detracting from our growth. Social media,
Mhm.
anything that I personally am just so excited about growing and improving my life and learning me more. And I think that social media doesn't do. And I love your posts. Like, you do posts, they're engaging, but also it's also distracting me from like reading a book or going for the walk or working on my 5 values or whatever. And I think it's just a distraction. And I'm just really trying. Again, I have a hard time being my own moderator of how much time have I spent. If it's 2 minutes or it's 2 hours or it's all 2 days, I just can't really put it down. So I know my personality being very addictive, and it's easier for me to just kind of be off of it instead
Yeah.
of participating.
Yeah. And that's self-awareness, right? It's knowing yourself so well that you're like, how do I set myself up for success? If this is my year of growth, this is what I want to read more. I want to have engaging conversations, rich dialogue where I discover more, learn more, evolve more. Then it's seeking out those type of things that you can block off in your schedule and make hold it like a rock, a boulder, and honor that, show up for that. And yeah, I mean, I can remember periods of time where social media would just, hours would go by and you're just like, where did that time go? And what did I get from that? Right. And it probably more or less reinforces again that whole polarity of, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is fair, this is unfair. And all that does is reinforce, really about judgment. And it's
Hmm.
really not a healthy thing in my opinion. But so
I love it. I'm the same way about sugar, Shayna, because I can't just have a little, so I just go off completely, and I don't have any addictions now and any cravings. And I can't even have like a tiny bit. I keep experimenting. Maybe I'll just have, this one little candy, and then I'm right back in. and so that's okay. I just can't have any, and I love it. I'm free. I just have to be really free. I'd probably be the same way with alcohol, so I don't drink any alcohol either. And and that's good to know yourself, what you can do and how your body chemistry is. It's great. I'm really proud of you for not engaging in social media. I start getting sick after, like, I don't know, 10 minutes of it. I start thinking, wow, my life sucks and everybody else's life is great. And it's not true. And it's, just weird, the feelings I get. I mean, it's engaging. It's really entertaining. They've gotten better and better at it. It's so entertaining, but I just can't, it's just too much stimulus for me. And I want a personal growth too. I want to be close to God. I don't want to be close to social media. So that's my emphasis this year. What do you really want to dedicate your life to? And I don't know, I've just come to the place where I just want to be, I really do. I just want to dedicate it to God and feel his spirit and be guided. And I have a lot of really great goals. And one of the things you said, Catherine, is always, what do you speak of you want more of? Well, it has to do with just you. It can't be controlling anybody else. That has to be very clear, because you can want more of a relationship where somebody isn't interested in you. And then you're just left in frustration. It happens all the time in relationships. And so that kind of thinking is awesome, but it has to be, what do you want more of from yourself, and for your own goals and your own self-care and your own growth and learning. And so, I don't know, are you finished? Did you have more to say,
Nope.
Shayna? Oh, okay. Okay. So, yeah, so I was thinking about this chapter, and I'll just give a tiny bit of background. But before I was married, I was singing around the world in a group, and it was really fun. We went to China and Indonesia and Guam and Japan and Hawaii and all these places. And then I became a professional singer, and I was on some they were called albums back then, record albums. But I always thought it would be really cool to be a professional singer, but really my number one goal was to be a mom. I had such a great mom. She had 11 kids, and I thought, really, I'd way rather have a big family and just be a wonderful mom. So I loved being a mom. I didn't work. I was lucky to be able to stay home, and my kids were really amazing and successful in all that they did. And I loved being there for them. I loved being on the front row of everything. It was just the best. And so my kids are all married now, and they're very successful in their own lives and married great people. And it was a weird transition, because suddenly, that's when I first called Catherine, because I was like, I don't need it anymore. But that I don't care about anymore. Now my oldest daughter is kind of going through, I don't know if it's a hormonal thing or whatever, but she went to therapy. She has 9 kids, so that's quite a lot, but the therapist told her, you sound to me like you didn't have a voice, and started kind of turning her. There's such a thing called bad therapy. I think personally this could have been it, but that whatever. So now, instead of being kind, which she's always been such a kind person, she's lashing out, which is really odd. And so, you know, I find myself not being able to. I just made the lead in a Easter musical in Oakland, and my husband said, "I got to tell the family," and I'm like, "No, don't tell anybody," because I was so worried that my kids were going to be like, "Oh, mom's bragging" or whatever. And I feel like apprehensive, like Mel does in her book, about sharing things about myself. And so we had this big family reunion this weekend, and we had a big talent show, and I was in charge of most of it, of the talent show and the games and the food and everything. I don't know how I ended up doing so much, but at the end of the talent show, I thought, you know what? My daughter-in-law has taught me this wonderful song on the guitar, and I just want to share it. So I got the guitar out, and I said, I've been taking lessons from Cambry, and I just wanted to share this song. And so I started singing, and I saw my daughter go like this, like, oh my gosh, my mom again. And so after singing the first verse, I said, well, that's all, but I wanted to just show that it's never too late. And then we went on. And I know a lot of people really liked it and came up and said stuff, but I just felt, I never feel that way. I never feel shy about stuff. It was just weird. I am allowing for some reason, she has kind of this thing, like a mom derangement syndrome lately, that it just makes me feel really inhibited. But I'm just trying to be loving and just trying to be understanding. And anyway, the whole family reunion, I was really nice and cordial and interested and didn't talk about myself, of course. And anyway, so the very end of the night, I realized that I hadn't gotten a picture of all six siblings because they're all together and it's really rare. They all live in, different places and they're all busy and they all have gotten together for this wonderful reunion. And so my mom always sends out stuff every week about herself. She sends out pictures, but she's 89, so no one cares. And she's like, this is what I did today. And she goes on and on. And everybody thinks it's darling. I can't do that because it comes across as, oh my gosh, mom is bragging about her trip to Hawaii or bragging about this or bragging about whatever. So I just don't send anything and they don't know anything about my life, even what I do and or anything I've been in or make or anything. And so at the very end, I said, okay, my son just came back. We're all together. Let's get a quick picture before everyone leaves by the fireplace of the six kids. So the five get up there, and my daughter, who I don't know, she's just having this issue. She goes, this is torture. You should feel really bad. I can't do it like she does. It's really scary. And she's like, but you don't. And that's the problem. Look at their faces. They are miserable. And they looked fine to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, I mean, it takes 1 second, right, to get this picture. She made more of a deal out of it going up there. So I didn't say anything. I think I just said, well, I think they look, I asked them, they said it was fine. And she got up there and we took the picture. But it's really hard for me right now to be criticized by her. I find myself being scared. It's weird. And so I have to just I've done everything I can to try to mend, whatever it is she's so angry and upset about. I have a feeling it's not just me. I think there's some other things really going on. But I don't want to have to tiptoe. And I found myself with this chapter 5 was very, very effective because it's like, you know what, in this case, when I've written an apology note for everything, when I should have said thank you and let's open the dialogue. But I've done everything that I can as far as I know and praying and everything that I just haven't, there's no change that I've seen really. And so I think it's this phase she's going through that I have to just let her, and I have to be okay with her not liking me right now. I honestly, I've looked back over my life and I feel like I have given so much. I know every parent feels this way, that whose child is estranged from the books I've read, that every parent feels like I've given so much and this is what I get. And each kid is thinking something, they're focusing on some hurt or something a parent said or something they didn't do. And that's the big issue in their life. And they don't have the emotional capacity to talk about it. They just would rather, sadly, under a lot of times, a therapist's influence, they'll say, you know what, it sounds to me like your parent is toxic or narcissistic or whatever. And they've got this label. And so the adult child is like, yeah. And then it sounds to me like you need a break from your parents. So instead of, encouraging them to be compassionate and forgiving and all the old fashioned principles, the new thing is now, don't associate, you've got your boundaries. And so don't associate with anyone that is quote toxic. So they don't have to work anything out. It's just, oh, they're toxic. And pretty soon I think their world gets pretty small if that's the, MO. So I don't know. I went home, focused kind of on that instead of all the good things. But then I thought, you know what, there was so much good that happened, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Is I gave it my all and my best, and all I can do is just continue to show love. And I don't know. I do find myself very uncomfortable sharing anything about my life because I realize only a few of my kids are interested. There's definitely my oldest daughter is not interested at all. Doesn't care and doesn't want to know anything or anything. It's coming across as bragging. So I know. That's all.
Yeah. So
Too long.
no, what is the let them let me for this scenario? I think you kind of touched on it, but I'd really like to hear it from you. Let them what, and then let me what?
Yeah, so I think it would be in this case, let them, I mean, if I was back and looking, observing the situation, just as a unbiased observer, I would think, wow, what a bee the oldest daughter is. She can't stand in there for it. And look how nice the mom's being. You know, she just wants a picture of her 6 kids. That's how I would have viewed it. And so by me not responding in a negative way, or, you know, maybe I could have said, hey, honey, you don't have to be in it. Let's just do the 5 then, you know, it's fine. You know, if this isn't a convenient time for you, if you can't take a second to take a picture with your siblings. But I don't know, that would have been one option. But I just said, well, I don't know, they seem fine with it. And so let them have an attitude
Mhm.
and just continue to be kind. There also is, you know, like there's a businessman's theory that I read this morning that if you're too kind all the time, no one respects you. So there's also that little throw in, but my values are to be kind no matter what. And so even if it doesn't work in my favor, I think it is always beneficial to be kind and just let the other person, you know what I felt like? I felt like watching her suddenly descend into a 2-year-old and having a temper tantrum in the grocery store on the floor. And I thought, wow, she's 40 and she's having a little temper tantrum right now because she's irritable and maybe her hormones are off or whatever. But I think what is kind of weird to me to observe is that I all really just really wanted to be close to my kids. I mean, I have the best relationship in the world with my own mother, and even my father, who left mom and had several affairs and stuff. I adore him. I mean, I don't hold anything against him at all. It took me a while, that's for sure, a couple years to forgive him, but I those are really great joys to me, to be close to my parents. They're still alive at my age, 65. I think it's amazing. I have 2 parents that are still alive. And I love talking to them and calling them and feeling that close bond and connection. And you know, I have other kids that I can be close to, but my daughter only has one mom. And you know, part of me kind of hurts for her to think that she really is making the decision. The ball is in her court. I've done everything that I can. I've reached out so many times, and I think I have really been a fabulous mom. I've looked back over my lifetime, and I don't have any regrets. I don't remember bad times. I was her biggest cheerleader. We have done so much for her, even, you know, through our kids and the births and the gifts and the swimming and the free orthodontic, everything we've given. And I've loved it. I've never been like giving so we get something back. But look, I don't think I could. I'm not for sure. There's probably times I said harsh words or whatever, but I think I've been a really good mom. And you know, the ball is in her court, and she's choosing the memories that she wants to choose over other good memories. And so, and she's choosing to hold this grudge. And I can't. There's nothing that final decision, especially this last weekend, is just I have to allow her to have her freedom, just like God does with us. And He allows that freedom. So
Let me
I don't
interrupt you,
know.
Kim.
That's just what I have to.
Let me interrupt you. So how do you get your,
That's all I had to say, really.
how do you
Hmm?
access your freedom?
Pardon?
How do you access your freedom? Since you're
What was
giving
the
your
question?
daughter freedom, how do you access your freedom?
Yeah, and so that's a really good question, and I think it's by by having the tools to know I'm doing my best, that I'm kind and loving and I feel loving for her, to her, and that and it's a freedom, I think, to really love somebody even if they don't love you.
Mhm. So to articulate that in a different way is it's choosing to make peace with what is, giving her the time
Yeah.
and space to process this. Because you even said that this is a phase, you know, a little bit ago, you said that this is a phase. So it's allowing her the freedom to move through this phase, keeping an open heart, keeping an open door. And your freedom is all about what you're thinking and believing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I could be wrong too, even about how she feels, but she's, she's sent stuff that's pretty, I wouldn't send that to my worst enemy.
Yeah.
So
Let's
it's,
stay with what you can control, though. Stay with what you can control.
right. But I'm just saying that I could be wrong, but I think it's accurate. But what I can control is my own happiness, my life, my relationship with God, and my relationship with my husband. He happens to love me very much, and we have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with my other kids. I enjoy so much everything about them and my grandkids, and just being and doing, and and honestly, there is a part of your heart as a mom, you love all your kids. It's not like I'm saying, well, I'm glad I have 5 kids and I don't care about her anymore. I have a compassion for her, but I'm not going to let it rule. Um, I just, the part of me though is I just can't share anything with her because it's like a snake coming out and biting me. And so I've been bitten so many times in the last year from her that I'm like, I don't want to be bitten again. So I'm just not sharing anything, sadly, and just letting her live her life and I live my separate life. But just feels, you know, sometimes it feels, like she's still a part. And so when do I include her and when do I not in the text? And it's always kind of should we include her now in this announcement, or is she gonna hate this, or is she gonna, so I don't know. It's just
So
weird. It just feels odd.
you're making a choice to not share on social media. Hard stop. Because if we are
Right. I
blaming,
don't put anything on.
yep, because if we're finger pointing and blaming people for why you're doing what you're doing, it continues to build that resentment. It's going to continue to reinforce what you do and you don't do. Back to what Shayna says, that you're a slave to others when you're allowing other people's thoughts, opinions, views, perspectives, assumptions, all the different things to dictate what you do and don't do. So you're making a choice and not sharing. Hard stop.
I really did. The reunion, I really wanted to sing the entire song. It is such a beautiful song and it's such a great ending. And when I saw my daughter do that, I thought, am I making an idiot of myself? And I knew everybody else was enjoying it, but I allowed that to stop me and do only part first verse. And then I just stopped. And my son, he was sitting by me, Cambry's his wife, and he goes, Mom, sing the whole thing. It's gorgeous. Do it. And I was like, no, it's okay. It's talent show's over anyway. It's fine. I just wanted everyone to know it's never too late. I felt stupid kind of, but anyway, I did allow that really negative look and nobody else had it, but to dictate and so it was probably came across even stupider just to do a couple little lines, but doesn't anyway, no, I like this verse. It's hard. This was the hardest chapter for me. I do care what people think, obviously. And so when you get out there in social, if you're doing things like you're doing, Catherine, and like Mel is doing, you do have to be Teflon because you're always going to get haters.
Mhm.
Absolutely. In fact, my dad always taught me the brighter the light, the darker the shadow.
Mhm.
So the more of an impact you're making in the world and the more people help, the more people you have that hate your guts.
Mhm. Yeah. And again,
It's
it says
just a
more about them than
fact.
me. One, I would like you to, in one sentence, how are you applying the let them, let me moving forward this week, the rest of this week? How are you going to navigate when the intrusive thoughts, the automatic negative thoughts to the past how are you going to move forward? We are at an hour, so I want to make sure just to tie this into a bow. What comes up for you? And if it takes a second, that's fine. What comes up for you, and let me, that helps you move towards a good feeling.
Well, I think compassion for the other person, and but for me, just to do my mission and my talent and not worry, just like Mel. I need to do whatever
Remember,
I'm
we need to
inspired to do
state
and
it.
become.
Kim, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's stating in what you're wanting more of, right? So no buts. We're going to drop the buts and we're going to state what we're wanting more of.
I'm wanting more of me to be me.
Mm. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Simple.
Simple.
Just me to be me, and people can like it or not. I would have loved to have done the whole song. It was so pretty. And you know, Cambry's there, and she taught me it, and I was kind of a tribute to her too. She's a great guitar teacher. So anyway, me to be me, and in a kind way. And if the snake comes out, then just envision a 2-year-old on the store floor having a tantrum. It's okay.
She did say in this chapter that how she loves her kids, but she doesn't always like them. And she
Yeah.
even referenced her husband, like, my husband farts, and I love him, but I don't like him. And so she listed all four of her, like her husband, her 3 kids. She listed why things she didn't like, but she still loved them. And I have to say, Kim, real quick, that I am actually very similar situation as your daughter is in, and the ball is in my court with my relationship with my mother. I am the oldest of 3. And I have fixated on a certain stories, and I keep replaying them in our past, and it is a choice that I am choosing.
Mhm.
However, I can speak from my point of view, if it helps, gives it any light to your situation, and that I don't want my mom to bother me or text me or reach out to me, that I do want the ball in my court and I will initiate when I'm ready. And it's really helped our relationship. She's backed way off, and I've really appreciated just having some space. And I will randomly text her, like, thinking about you, hope you're having a great day. And she loves it. And right now that's our steps to repair. But she was in my business way too much, and I really started to despise. And I felt like she was spying on me and intruding in my life, and I really had to put a boundary up. And we're making progress better, but I needed the ball in my court, and I needed her. I did felt she was bragging and was always talking about herself, and she didn't ask me how I was. It was always about her. And it really was I couldn't unsee it. And so that's where I'm at with my relationship with my mom. I don't know if that helps you or not, but I did want to speak up. And the look on her face, maybe she was having I forgot about leaving the crock pot on the stove and didn't shut it off a moment. I think we all think everything's about us when we see other people have a thing. And it could be, oh my gosh, I need to change my panty liner, or oh my gosh, my pad is overflowing. I mean, who knows? We all write these stories because we're all very self-centered and we all focus on ourselves. And that is my life too. But you saw that and made it about you. And it really could have been like, oh my gosh, the toddler's diaper is for sure. I can smell his poop. It's gross. I have no idea what was happening. But in case that makes you feel better about you, in that situation, maybe rewrite that story a little bit in case, because you don't know what she was thinking. I assume all day, every day.
I wish not have talk because I'm so, I would love her.
Oh, we might lose her. I thought we would. We do need to tie this up, but thank you, Shayna, for vulnerably sharing. That was so, so beautiful. Thank you for that. And me too. I do. Yeah, not taking the light from but thank you for sharing that. That was very vulnerable, and it gave me some clarity too. And yeah, you can ask for, the ball, put the ball in my court, ask for the space, and have those new rules, right? Those parameters. And when the time is right, there might be more, or maybe not. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. It's your life, right? It's your one wild and precious and beautiful life. And it's your choice in who you let in and how far you let them in. So thank you. Thank you for coming. I hope you come week after next, right? Every other week. Okay. See you then. Bye.